Good morning and happy Halloween. My name is Ted, and you're watching the Business of Cyber show where we talk about resources. Now, one resource I don't have a lot of this morning is energy and a voice. I woke up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I could have stayed in bed till at least 11. But you know what would have happened if I woke up at 11? I would have missed this show, would have missed the opportunity to talk to you guys about something that is really important to me. And that's about the overall cyber capabilities of our entire industry, right? There's 3.4 million unfilled jobs in cybersecurity. And one of the things that I'm super passionate about is challenging this notion that you got to have 10 years experience, you got to have 20 years of IT experience, you have to know everything about OT cybersecurity in order to add value in today's marketplace. The truth is that is not true. So how did we get to becoming a cyber consultant in 100 days? Well, let me tell you a little story. A good friend of mine who actually encouraged me to do this show started by reaching out to me on LinkedIn and said, Ted, I've been watching the Business of Cyber show and you're simplifying things, which is good. Thank you for the feedback. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to demystify the overall cyber marketplace and the cyber strategies out there. And the best way to do it is to bring the experts in. And I've been humbled by how many experts have joined me on the show in the last couple of months. And he said, I'm not in cybersecurity, but I want to be. And what would you guide me to think about if I wanted to be, let's say, a cyber consultant? Is it really that hard? And I thought about a response, and the most natural response I had was, no, it's not that hard. I think we tend to make things harder than they really are. That dovetails into one of the biggest challenges that I think people have: CISOs, CIOs, OT, IT professionals, security and risk management leaders in the critical infrastructure space. I guarantee you, by a show of hands in any auditorium, if it said, would you like to have somebody else on your team that has a skill set that you can benefit from? The answer would always be yes. Now the question comes, where am I going to get that person? What level of training they need? And I think that's a big conversation to have as an industry. But what I can tell you is that today I'm going to bring you some entrepreneurial perspectives of why within 100 days, I can almost personally guarantee that you can have maybe not a purchase order yet, but you can have a proposal with cyber in it if you can master a couple little tricks that every entrepreneur on the planet is going to use. So this is a little bit of a departure from what we've done in the past on the Business of Cyber show, but I'm so passionate about sharing what's worked for me, where I've failed a lot in the past, switching jobs around 7 times. I'm going to show you what helped me navigate my journey all the way from an Army officer all the way into owning a tech company in the cybersecurity space. And my only offer is that I tell you what's working for me and what hasn't in the past. Now, to do this, I didn't have a bunch of slides. What I am going to do is right here on this piece of paper, as soon as the camera tightens up, I'm going to give you a little bit of an understanding of what is the process that I've followed year over year, and what would I guide myself to do if I was starting a company in 100 days. Now, the first thing that I'm going to challenge you to think about is when somebody says, how in the world can you be a cyber consultant overnight? And the challenge is you don't have to become, hold on just a second. Taylor, would you go get that Sharpie for me? Because I think it needs to be more bold. I don't see it here. No, this one's too thick. There was a couple Sharpies in the back. Don't worry. This is just a little technical minor difficulty. I'm writing in pen and I want to make sure everybody can see it. There is a lot of people that, and I say a lot, there's about 6 or 7 people that have sent me messages saying it's impossible to be a cyber consultant in under 100 days. And I actually challenge them and say, why is that? Why does it have to be impossible? I think the real question is, what value are you trying to offer within the cybersecurity space? Okay, so the first thing is that I want to talk to you guys about today is how we are going to evaluate what can we be and who can we be in the cyberspace in a short period of time. Okay, let me see if this actually matters. I may switch views and you might be able to see it better. Yeah, I think that works. And then I'm going to make this a full screen. Okay, so give us some comments if you can't see, but this is where I think you're going to be able to see the most. All right. Now on the fly, this is what I'm looking at. You're going to have to do a couple things really effectively. You're going to have to look at your history. You're going to have to look at your target market. How's that coming out? That looks good. You're going to have to eval the problems that you see in the market. Okay. These are all core tasks that I'm going to ask you to kind of think about as we go through this exercise. I'm going to show you what most people will tell you is a totally complex process, and I'm going to demystify it today. And that is, we're going to eval some control families. Okay. Then you're going to look at the available solutions on the market. And then I'm going to show you how to do the how. That's 100 days. Now, when you take a look at where you've been, when you take a look at your target market, when you evaluate the different problems that you see in the market, you evaluate different controls, you evaluate the available solutions, the entire process is entrepreneurial, okay? And what you're looking for is a very, very particular statement or series of statements that the collection of this research leads you to. This is what gives people that are trying to switch industries the most angst. And that is, what is my business value? Now, while we're going through this, I'm not looking at all the comments and everything, but if you see something, you're like, wow, I wish Ted would dive into that a little bit more. Somebody just, that's one of my phones. Will somebody grab that, please? Sorry, guys. It's a wild morning because it's Halloween. When you figure out your business value, you're going to be able to figure out, am I going to build a product? Am I going to offer a service? Or am I going to offer a capability? And let me tell you, the reason that people want to become an entrepreneur, they want to go do something else, they want to move into another part of the market, they want to offer some other kind of value, is that they can see one or two of these elements that is so natural to them, and they can't figure out the business value. And as a result, they can't figure out what service they would do. And what ends up happening is they start spinning in a wheel saying, there's no way I could ever be a cyber consultant. And so I'm not stating that you're going to be able to go do a network architecture review or an incident response exercise in under 100 days. What I am promising is if you move through this kind of process and you don't worry about the sick days and you put in time after work and you're still taking care of your family and you're putting all that time in, you are going to understand what your business value is to the world. The next step from there is figuring out a product or a service or a capability that has a relatively low lift and is relatively not in a red market. We're going to cover a couple of those. So when you think about how in the world am I going to become a consultant in 100 days, you're still thinking about being a consultant and you haven't defined yet what the problem in the market is and who you are going to be to solve that problem. That's what we're going to dive into today. So I'm going to use some white sheets of paper and I'm going to cover every one of these items. If you like it and you want to see more of it, I'll do a whole class on it. Okay. And it's not a class because I'm an instructor. It's not a class because I'm getting paid. It's me helping others around me understand that it isn't that hard. And we can work as an industry together to bring up the next cadre of cyber folks. So let's talk about history. Whenever you switch jobs, I want you to ask yourself one question. What kind of shoes do I want to wear? If you like dressing up in a suit, you probably should work for a consultant company. You should be a consultant. You should be going and visiting facilities on a regular basis. If you like hard hats and steel toes, then you ought to tie in closer to the automation or the engineering side of the house. If you like to be in your tennis shoes and a t-shirt, maybe you should go work for a really early stage tech company. Right then and there, if you can tell me what kind of shoes you want to wear, I'm going to help you segment into where you want to be. So let's talk about your history. Now, where have you worked? That's an industry. That's a company type. Okay. What skills and have driven you to see unique things? I'll give you an example. When I started working in the oil and gas industry, I was actually a root cause failure analysis technical auditor. I would go and figure out why a tool broke down hole. I got kind of good at that, and that led me to understand what ISO standards were. ISO standards, I started following a a quality standard. As soon as I started doing quality better, in under 100 days, I started doing quality audits. And then after that, I started doing more audits to risk management standards, and risk management drove right into cyber. What's going to happen is you're sitting on an island, okay? And that island is what you call your current job. When you land on that island, this is usually a sector that you're in, and you may not be happy with that particular job. There's water all the way around you. Most people think that they got to go find an island overnight. What's going to happen is you're going to take a little boat out, you're going to go this way. You didn't find anything, you're going to come back. You took your boat out this way, you took your boat out this way. When you ever hear you have to burn your ships, when either you become an entrepreneur or you become an individual business owner, what they mean is don't go back to your home base. Now, that's a personal decision. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Your history is defined by the island that you've been to. For me, it was the military. For me, it was oil and gas. And if I dove even deeper, it was actually in manufacturing facilities in oil and gas. So look at all the different things that I can see now that I'm in that space. So your first step is, am I going to be a cyber consultant that's doing, that's implementing OT asset inventory solutions by myself? No, you're not going to do that. But if you get into an environment where you see all the challenges, that's where you're going to be able to find out how you're going to create that business value. So what you do is when you're on this island, which is defined as wherever you're working, you've got to start testing the limits of your own understanding of what that business does. If you work for a major manufacturing company, go talk to the cyber risk people, go talk to the risk management people, go talk to the finance office, go talk to the operational office, go talk to supply chain, and go ask them questions about the industry that you want to work for a little bit. What you're doing is you are moving into a phase where you're able to understand and evaluate problems in the space. Okay, now in this particular one, we're talking about cyber. Most people will tell you that you can't be a consultant in cybersecurity because you can't learn cybersecurity in 100 days. Here's what you can learn. You can understand what challenges in cyber a given business sector or island has. If you're one of those, no offense to the younger generation, but this whole idea of like gig worker economy, and I'm going to float around the world and have work-life balance, and I'm just going to have 16 different companies I work for. That's great. I hope it works out for you. But if you're really trying to understand core business value in 100 days and build your own practice, if you've had 5 jobs in the last 4 years, this is not going to be able to help you. So this is talking to people that have been in a given industry for a given period of time, and they know their world. If you've been in HR for an extended period of time, then you know how challenging it is to find people. If you've been in finance for 15 years, you know how hard it is to kind of budget and plan and what all the challenges are for buying new solutions are. If you've been in the physical security space, or you've been really regimented in enforcement of different standards, now you're starting to work, well, maybe I can look at the compliance space. So something about your history should point you towards a business problem. And that evaluation of the problem in the space, you got to start getting really specific. When I started my tech company, I knew a lot of people in the oil and gas. I knew a lot of people in Houston. I created an Excel file, and there were 15 or 16 questions that I asked over 100 companies with my founder. And I just asked open-ended questions about ideas that I had in cybersecurity and what their core challenges were. And as soon as they answered something, all I did was I would repeat the answer they gave me. And then they just started to unload on all these problems. And so version 1 of the product that we released into the market was actually a pretty nice fit to a lot of the problems that we had seen. You don't have to build a product, you don't have to build a service to have a conversation. So if you want to become a consultant in the cyberspace, you want to add value in the cyberspace, go and look at the history of your job. Call as many people as possible that you've been engaged with for an extended period of time and start talking to them about what are you seeing for cyber? How is cyber affecting your job? And if you've been in supply chain, if you've been in people, if you've been in physical security, those are just examples I'm pulling out. Somebody is having a challenge in cyber. And because you know the terms, because you know how that business functions, because you know how that business operates, somehow cybersecurity inevitably is affecting that world. And it's your job in a very short period of time to talk to as many people about that space, about cyber, okay? Now, you're still not a believer. I understand. We got to keep rocking. So let's do this. Let's talk about your target market. It's a really simple thing you can do for any type of go-to-market planning. I don't know who made it. I use it all the time. I want you to create a box. You could do 9x9, you could do 3x3. Remember, this is your space. This is your history. This is your understanding of what you know best. For me, it would have been the oil and gas market or the critical sector market. For you, it may be a pharmaceutical company. Let's see, what are we going to do? I'm breaking up my market. So why don't we go small, medium, large. So this is the size of the company. And I'm going to say that we're going to do something called maturity. So I've been in cyber for a while, and I know that there's mature companies and then there's immature companies. So here's what I want you to do. Every one of these boxes represents an attainable market for you to go in action on, okay? We have this thing called TAM, SAM, SOM. The total addressable market for a serial is every human being in America under the ages of, let's say, 16. Your attainable market is the segment of those millions and millions of people that like cereal and are not in love with the one that they have. So they're looking for a new cereal. So that $20 million amount of people goes down to 5. And your obtainable market is the people that maybe like a certain type of cereal. Maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's fruit, maybe it's Honey Nut Cheerios. And you want to create a product that competes against that. You just created your obtainable market. The exact same thing can apply to cybersecurity. Am I going to focus on small companies? Am I going to focus on medium companies, or am I going to focus on large companies? And am I going to focus on people with a high maturity or a low state of maturity? Now, I'm going to fast forward you a little bit that we could spend an entire hour on this alone. One of the biggest challenges in the cybersecurity market is that no one does this really effectively, because cyber is such a weird thing and nobody really claims to understand it. And it's so complex and you'll never understand it if you haven't been in it 20 years. Look, I know this. I know that really small companies and low maturity are not going to buy highly technical solutions. They're going to rely a lot more on consultants. I know that if you have been a consultant before and you've been in really big companies and you know how to operate within big companies, you're probably going to be more comfortable way over here. What you want to do is you want to have a conversation with yourself about whether or not you think, based on, remember guys, your history, where have I worked? Where do I feel comfortable working? Big companies operate a lot different than small companies. What are the problems that I know in that space? Okay. What you're going to start to find is, you know what? I'm never going to, not in 1 year for sure, going to be able to help really large companies. I'm an individual contractor. But I met some guys that are really low maturity. They don't know anything about cybersecurity. My old boss used to work. He knows that there's nobody in that role. So I could probably go there, and I could definitely go here because I know small companies. But if they're highly mature, they're going to challenge me. I'm not going to add any value because I'm new to the space. So now, right now, what we've done is we've taken this unbelievable amount of companies that we could service or that we could sell us something to, and we basically segmented the market out and said, this is my target market. Now, once you do this exercise, you may be in the top right, you may be in the top left. Only you can decide. What are you going to do? You're going to go back and you're going to research again, what are the problems in the space? Only this time, you're going to be more focused. When you started here talking about general problems, now you're going to go here. Let me give you an example. I feel like I could do an incident response exercise for various types of companies. Okay, well, what kind of company? Well, do you want to go after small, medium, or large? Well, I'm better at the medium-sized companies. Well, are you looking for somebody who's done incident response exercises before or somebody that hasn't? Well, I think probably somebody that hasn't, because I'm new to this space. I want to add a lot of value. Okay, so you keep doing that exercise, trying to segment down like a Lego. Like you have this huge architecture of the world of potential buyers of your product or service. You're just going to pull them down. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a couple Legos in front of you. This is how it'll sound. I want to give X product or service or capability to Y types of companies that are between this size and this size, that are located here, here, and here within the United States, and that are having a core problem with A, B, C, or D. And once you figure that out, you have essentially done some of your market planning, which is going to fundamentally help you move to the next step in what you're actually going to do. So remember, this is your target market. Let me just write these down because we'll keep coming back to them. Okay. Your target market, we talked about your history, we talked about evaluating problems. This is a continual process. Okay. So we came here, we know my history. I know where I can kind of add value and transition some of my skill sets. I know what my target market is going to be. I've evaluated the problems and I think I have a general understanding of those problems. Well, now let's dive into some solutions. There are, and we're going to do that by evaluating controls. Okay. This is probably the most specific we'll get today. I could dive in for days and days and days on this next piece, but I'm not going to. Where did I put the, is it on the back of this? Where's this CSF control family? I bet you it's right here. Okay, I want you to go to your Google browser. This is for not immature, excuse me. These are people that haven't been in the cyberspace too long, or people that are just kind of learning, or even somebody that's an expert, okay? I want you to go to NIST CSF. Just type it into a Google browser. Go download version 1.1. And what you're going to do is you're going to find this functioning category, all right? Now, you can't really see too much, so I'm not going to get into the details, but NIST CSF is essentially a framework. It was developed by the United States really government, along with a bunch of other personnel. And it is the most widely used assessment framework in the United States and globally. I know that because I'm in the business of cyber assessments, and this is one of the top ones used. We have 25 in the platform. It has a series of questions that it will ask you that are linked to various controls that are recommended, and they categorize them into 5 categories. Now, those are the things that we see in blue. You have identify, you have protect, detect, respond, and recover. Now, this is your best friend when you're figuring out how to become a cyber consultant in under 100 days. Because what you absolutely have to do is you've got to let go of the idea that I am going to be a cyber consultant that can do anything in cybersecurity with any type of company in 100 days. There are thousands and thousands of cyber practitioners that have dedicated their life to being able to essentially do anything in cybersecurity, okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to find one thing that you feel you can do as well or better than anybody else, and you got to pick it and you got to go test it and you got to dive in on it. And the best jump start or quick start for you to do that is to go and take a look at this document online. And what you're going to do is you're going to start looking at, do I want to start offering products, services, or capabilities in the identify, protect, detect, respond, or recover domains? They're not really phases. The best thing I could tell you in layman's terms is if there was a framework on how to secure your house, there would be a section on the doors outside and all the locks. There would be a section on making sure there's no holes in the house. There would be a section on making sure you know who has the keys. There'd be a section on making sure you're in the right neighborhood and you got the right neighborhood watch. There's going to be a section on insurance. There's going to be a section on cameras. There's going to be a section on dogs. And all you're trying to do is, if I'm going to get into the world of physical security, am I just going to say, hi, I'm a physical security expert? No. You're going to be the expert that helps you choose between Ring or Google Nest if you're on a budget and you live within the state of Texas and you have X amount of dollars in your pocket and you live in this various subdivision. That level of granularity on your first step in the cyber world is what is going to enable you to become a consultant or to be able to offer a product or a service in some particular way. So when you go through these, this is what it looks like. This is, it's probably about 20 pages. It's a good read. And what you want to do is they've broken down from the category of identify, they've categorized asset management. They explain what asset management is. This is a category. They break down that category into subcategories. Your job is to look at every single one of the subcategories, taking into consideration what your gut tells you about the market, what your gut tells you about your history, and what your gut tells you about what target market you want to approach. And if you even remotely say, can I do that? Can I do that? Well, that looks interesting. Circle it. Can I do that? Well, I don't really know about this. I need to do some research. Circle it. Your first step is to go through every single one of the subcategories, and you are going to find something. I just picked one randomly. Protect phase. Identity, authentication, access, and control and management. Physical access to assets is managed and protected. So right then and there, if you've been in physical security, dive into that, because this is something that you probably could do. We just keep going. Oh my God, check this out. Awareness and training. Probably the fastest way to jump into cybersecurity is somewhere in the awareness and training. Look at this one. PRAT-4. Senior executives understand their roles and responsibilities. Hi, my name is Joan. I've been in HR for 27 years. And one of the top things that I've learned working for really, really large enterprises is that senior executives move from job to job so quickly, they don't really understand what the core capabilities of the company is when they get there. The product and service that I offer is a cybersecurity jumpstart program for executives. If after 27 years of experience, we teach you all the subdomains of NIST CSF, the #1 most highly used framework in the world. If you're wondering whether you can be positioned to understand how to take cybersecurity in your next role, join me for a 30-minute workshop online where we'll talk about the top 3 things that you can do to be a better executive aimed for success at cybersecurity. Now, I just made that up. Now, not everybody can do that, but Joan can do that because Joan knows what the challenges are for senior executives. Joan knows because she went and talked to a bunch of her old bosses and a bunch of her old colleagues that senior executives don't even understand their role and responsibility in this space. Instead of saying, I'm going to be a cyber consultant, you're saying, I'm going to be a cyber consultant in awareness and training. And the core function that my history and my experience enables me to do is understand the real challenge. The challenge that NIST CSF has identified is that if senior executives don't understand their roles and responsibilities, then the awareness and training of the organization can improve. And that right there is how you can start you into this cyberspace overnight. Not overnight. You can choose what you want to do overnight. We're going to go a little bit further in the program here where we start talking about what you're going to do. So look, the purpose here is not to go through every single one of these. It's to tell you that there is more than enough that is out there that is not being done well enough, efficiently enough, fast enough, good enough. And all the keys to a great cyber program, not for every company, but for a lot of companies, is right here. It's available to you online. All you got to do is go look at it. All you got to do is study it. You know, I saw something online the other day. I'm not really into those get rich quick programs. I'm not sitting here telling you if you watch the Business Cyber Show that you're going to be a millionaire overnight, transitioning from, being a baker into a cyber consultant. Okay. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of learning. It's going to take a lot of no's. Here's what I am going to tell you. I saw this one thing and it said, if you work 20 hours, let's just do some quick math. This guy said that if you do 20 hours, how do I turn this on? Dual calculator. I don't want that. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. So 20 hours divided by 45. Oh my gosh. I don't know how to do this. Just hold on, guys. I don't know how to work this calculator. So if you work 20 hours a day and you divide that by 45 minutes a day, how many times is 20 hours going to, how many times is 45 minutes going to 45? Oh, so watch this. I'm sorry. 20 hours times, I totally lost it there. Forget the calculator. In about 30 days, if you worked 45 minutes every single day, in 20 days, you'd be 10 times more of an expert than any of your peers in a relative field. Now, a lot of people say, oh, thanks. Some people are watching in the office. Now, a lot of people say that you got to put your 10,000 hours in. I can't agree more than that. Okay. I totally agree. You got to put your 10,000 hours in. What I'm saying is to get started and go from 0 to 1, you have to get started today. And you have a ton of tools available to you. I just showed you one. Look at over here. This is informative references. Every single one of these subcontrols or subcategories is actually mapped to a host of different frameworks and standards. You have COBIT, you have ISA, you have ISA IEC 62443, you have ISO and IEC, you have NIST. What I'm simply telling you, going back to this process, is that if you want to be in cybersecurity, okay, you are going to have to align your product, your service, or your capability to a known control. And if you think too wide, you're going to mess up. You're going to get confused. Nobody's going to understand what you're offering. This happens all the time with product and service companies right now. You go to their website, there's 1,000 things they do. Well, if you're going to do everything, you're a generalist. I'm not arguing you should be a generalist. You need to be specific because the world today wants people that are very specific at what their job is. You can't do that without understanding what the controls are. Now, the next piece is pure play entrepreneurship. You've got to go out there and you've got to take your belief system about this particular series of controls. I would pick 2 to 3, and you got to go and you got to do your research. Now, this is when it gets to be the real work. Okay. If you're going to go and do research, you need to probably start with, any guesses? Start with the internet. I want you to just do Google searches on the control type. Then I want you to check the control type in my city. Then I want you to check that control type in the space or the sector that I know. Then I want you to do it for the target market. And you are going to be like a sponge, okay? Take the exact language from whatever control you're going to use. You like that little thing that I did right there? Yeah. Take the exact control language, punch it into a calculator, and go to the 4th or 5th page and look at every single website. Now, here's what you're looking for. On the spectrum of availability in your city, in your space, and in your target market, you're also going to say something like beginners. You're also going to say something like experts. So what would that mean? Just so we can be really specific. I bet you a couple of you are doing it right now. Let's talk about adequate capacity. Assets are formally managed through removal transfers. Okay. Now this is a hard one. Data security is going to be hard. There's a lot of products out there for that, but I'm just going to give you an example. Data in transit is protected in Houston. Data in transit is protected in the baking industry or the aerospace defense industry. Data in transit is protected in my space, target market, beginner, expert. You have to, for an extended period of time, we're talking days and weeks, you have to continually do your research on what is out there. Okay. And what you're looking for is on the spectrum of this being really hard and this being super easy, meaning it's going to be hard to deliver value if there's tons and tons and tons of vendors, specifically in your space, your target market, that are doing that. Or is it relatively easy, right? Maybe it's not even thought of. So you want to be somewhere in here, because if there's 0 competitors, then that probably means there isn't a market yet. If there's too many competitors, then that means it's going to be really hard for you to break into that market. My recommendation, if I was going to come up with a consultancy or some sort of value offering, I would want to pick a control that people talk about a lot, but it's usually like the 5th or 6th thing on their website, which means it's not their primary offering. And I would even call those companies. So once you find the internet, now you are doing what I call the interview stage. This is where a lot of people fail, because they're trying to transition into a belief system that they can offer a value in the market, but they haven't done it yet. So they're trying to go and do it, but they're hesitant. This is when you got to pick up the phone and you got to start making phone calls. Say, hey, I saw that on your website you have A, B, C, and D. Yep. Well, do you have any customers that do this, this, and this? Because I'm looking for that for a company. And you can have a 30-minute conversation with somebody in sales and understand their, managed service provider, product company, service company. You're not breaking any laws. You're interviewing that company to try to see if that specific control is a real moneymaker for them. And what you're trying to do with that interview process is not only talk to product companies, service companies, maybe MSSPs, maybe MSPs in your area. You're trying to understand, is that little component that you think you would be good at, is that little piece important to them? Because you already previously had talked to people in your space. This is the stage where most people are scared to fail. And when the fear of failure is a stronger feeling than the drive for success, people stop right here. Okay? What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to interview product companies, service companies. You're going to have to interview in the critical sector space, it's called asset owners. They're the real customers, right? So whoever you think the buying customer is in your space, you're going to have to talk to people. Hey, my name is Joni. I'm building a consultancy that does X, Y, and Z. I was hoping to talk to somebody in your company that would tell me if this was a real challenge. Okay, let me put you into line 3. Do that 100 times. You're probably going to get hung up 85 times. You may talk to 10 people 8 people will tell you they'll call you back when they really won't, but 2 people are actually going to give you their time. And that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for an interview for somebody. Now, a good way to shortcut this is call a buddy that lives in cybersecurity already and talk to that individual about whether or not your chosen control is really validated. Okay. Real quick question while we're checking in at the 35-minute mark. Have I said anything about cyber certifications? Have I said anything about certs? Have I said anything about a degree? Have I said anything about having to have 10 or 20 years in experience? No, I haven't. Folks, there's a badge protector mentality out there. And the mentality is because it took me 25 years to become a cyber expert, took me 12 years to become a risk management expert. I think it's going to take you just as much time. If that's the mentality that we have, then we will never solve this issue of cybersecurity risk management professionals, cybersecurity IT OT professionals. If we don't take the younger generation under our wing, and if you, whether you're a younger generation, you're in the middle of your career, or you're retiring, if you don't take the risk to jump out there, then we will continue to have millions of unfilled jobs in cybersecurity. Now, this is why I bring that up, is because this is when you should start training. But you don't go do the training until you have a general hypothesis or thesis about where you want to go and what you want to do. That's important. Why would that be important? Because if I start jumping out and I start doing training in every nook and cranny of cybersecurity, does that help me with this? Maybe, because there's a lot of cybersecurity learning or certifications or capabilities I could go to a lot, but it may not match your industry. And more important, if you start doing training too early, you're going to be too general and you're not going to have a specific focus. You want to be way down here in the specificity range. Okay. Now I can tell you that right now, if you're in Europe, it costs about $329 to get your first I don't know if it's a certification or if it's a certificate, but I know that it's like 40 hours of really intense training for NIS2. I know that if you're in the critical sectors, go to CISA.gov, look up critical sectors. There's 16 of them. There's about 32 subsectors in there. Great example is petrochemical facilities or wastewater facilities, emergency services. I want you to go and take ISA Secures, I think it's called IC32. It is not an expensive course, and it will give you a really wide understanding of all the facets of cybersecurity for critical sectors, specifically industrial automation control systems. There, on the IT side of the house, there are tons of take-home free training online. So we are not, and you're not going to have to spend 40 hours, you're not going to have to spend, 4 or 5 semesters training all this. I would actually tell you that if you're going to be in cybersecurity in a given industry, I would like to see somebody laser focus on what makes that industry tick and apply cyber to it, rather than go become a cyber generalist and then try to break into the market. Perfect example. If you're already in automation, if you're already in hardware, digitization, if you're already in some sort of moving things in a manufacturing type setting, then you have specific cyber training that you can take to bridge into cyber. The same could be applied to the people side of the house, and the same thing could be applied to the process side of the house. So if you're a very process-oriented person or a data-oriented person, you're going to learn through that training where you want to head next. If you're a people person, an extrovert, then you're gonna do that by talking with people. I'm gonna give you another little tip. Uh-oh, did we break this? Let's see. Can you still see? All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to a place right there. This is the best $55 you're ever gonna spend. I want you to go online, and I want you to take a test that changed my life. It changed my team's life. It's called the Colby A Index. There's a lot of personality tests out there, but what it will show you is data, process, risk, not cyber risk. Okay. And I think this one is build. I'm going to call it build, or I'm probably getting that wrong, but every one of these, there is represents a different way that you process data, the way that you follow systems, the way that you kind of deal with risk, and the way that you build things. If you're really high, like a 9 on this, you're going to be really low on systems. Okay, that's the way I am. I like systems, but I like to break them a lot because I like to be in environments where I'm constantly kind of innovating, which means that I don't follow through with tons of things that I do, unless it's a BOC show. Okay. But I like to be in environments where everything is changing constantly, right? So me constantly traveling, if I was a cold caller, I'd love cold calling because I'm constantly learning and I'm very natural in a state where there's a lot of uncertainty. If you're a data person, then this phase right here of evaluating the controls and evaluating the solution and evaluating problems, you need to have a really expansive Excel file that helps you say, what are the problems I found? What are the controls that I could probably be in the business of providing? And what are the available solutions on the market? And you will map out this whole like spider web and you're going to find the patterns. People that are a 2 in data, they don't need that. Right? So I'm not going to try to go through the entire thing. What I'm going to say to you is the Colby A index, it costs $55. It takes about 20 minutes and it will show you how do you process information most naturally. If you understand that, 2 things are going to be valuable in this quest for you. The first one is you're going to understand what you need to do really well in this process of determining your business value. If you're a quick start that doesn't like a lot of data models and doesn't like to follow a lot of systems, you need to get out and engage with the human race. You just need to get out there and start talking to people and you're going to learn on the fly. On the opposite end, if you're more of an introvert and you don't like changes and you'd like to be very structured, you're going to go to the world of analysts. So let's go back to the control list that you found here. This is a quick start. I mean, this is a jump start for you. You found the controls. Go here. Go to Gartner. Go to Forrester. These are companies that exist to do research and analyze market segments for various functions. They have a huge cyber. I've learned a ton from both. I'm actually a member of Gartner, so I'm actually able to access tons and tons and tons of data. And what you'll find is they do this analysis on markets. There are documents that you can access in here. A lot of it is on open source. You can do a ton of research by just reading what others have put out there. When you log in or when you go to these websites, because this is a lot of pay to play, you have to have a subscription, you're going to find a ton of other ones right below them. You're also going to have news articles about different things. So check the news, check investment, test products. All on one thread. What's the thread? We got to be specific. We have to be totally specific. What are the subcategories and the subcontrols that you think your history and your experience give you the capability to go and execute on? And that is going to take a question mark and turn it into a smiley face, because you're going to know where in the world on the spectrum of too many competitors and not enough competitors, where are we kind of falling? All right. Let's see how we doing. What you want to do is you want to check what the available solutions are. And once you check how the available solutions are, now you have said to yourself, I think I've found a market, and I hypothesize that I found a business problem that people are willing to pay for to solve a certain problem. And I think that all of my experience combined, some training that I've been able to do, I think this is worth going after. This is when the second really big mountain that you got to climb happens. Remember what the first is the first one was evaluating this total available solutions, because you got to talk to people. You got to engage with the world. You're putting yourself out there in a little bit that you sort of know exactly what your target market is and exactly what your value is, but you still have kind of just the architecture here. You haven't developed a product. You haven't developed a service. You haven't developed a capability. So now we have these things. We have confidence that we have a business value. This is now your second really big test. And this is before the 100 days. Once the 100 days start, let me see if I got a note on what I was going to write here. No, we'll go live. So let's just say that everything that I've showed you up to this point, let's say it took 10 days. I think that's realistic. And that is my business value. I figured it out. We're still in the hypothesis phase. So I'm going to put a question mark, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put like a, I'm not sure yet, right? So that's a question mark, right? This is when you really start to jump out there. Believe it or not, I would not set an LLC up at this time, but that's a separate conversation for separate reasons. Here's what I would do next. I want you, this is 10 days. For the next 5 days, what would I do? I'd go to create a company name. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be Johnny B's Cyber Consulting, Johnny B's, whatever. And I want you to create a logo. Now you can go to azilliondesigns.com, put a contest up. You can use AI. You can do all kinds of stuff. Make a logo, right? Create a LinkedIn page. All right. Once you get on that LinkedIn page, because that is where you're going to spend time and money, because this is where people buy products and services. That's where they buy stuff. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, leave that for your kids, okay? Or your grandmother. I don't really know. But bottom line is you're not going to generate any business there. So then I want you to get on LinkedIn. I want you to start writing a couple paragraphs on what you think your business value is, okay? And right then and there, within this first 5 days, I want you to start getting contacts in the space. I want you to start putting out at least some basic content. Number one way to put basic content out: share with the world different frameworks, different standards, different ideas, different blog pieces, and make sure that you're doing it according to what I call your brand. So what you're trying to do at the end of this 5 days is you are creating your initial brand. Okay. Now, once you've done that, nothing's going to happen, because LinkedIn is not going to reward you for being on there for 5 days, but you're going to have to keep doing this over and over and over and over. Why? What is the absolute must have? Why are we doing this on day 5? We don't even have a product or a service. Well, it's because that by the 95th day, you need to have enough followers. You need to have enough content. You need to have enough specific things about your product or service so that when the potential client that you're going to close comes and looks at your LinkedIn site, you actually are communicating over time all the different value. You're not tricking the world. You're simply saying, this is what I believe in. This is my foundational belief system on this market. This is where I sit in the market. This is the island that I'm on. This is all the traveling that I've done in these shark infested waters. But I'm here offering that service, and that will resonate on LinkedIn. Now, I forgot one thing, and this is probably really important for a lot of you. Once you start getting that value chain out, you're going to spend the next 25 days refining your overall position in the market. What is your true value? Notice I haven't even built a product or service yet. Just hold on, okay? Okay, so this is the value chain. I'm just going to say value testing. Now this it's not that hard to set up a logo. That's fun. Okay. Get your kids to help pick out what colors it is. It's not hard to set up a LinkedIn, and it's not even really hard to get a couple pieces of content out. What's hard to do is to keep doing it over and over when you're not an expert yet, or you don't feel that you're the expert, but that's okay. Because guess what? Whoever wins a slam dunk contest or wins a 3-point contest, they didn't always have that 3-pointer shot like that. They weren't always perfect. You're not going to be either. And that whole belief system that you got to be perfectly trained and get a certificate, but they don't have any real world experience of talking to people about this problem. They don't have any real world experience in really understanding what the core business problem is. And they don't have any experience in operational environments, understanding how cybersecurity affects them. They're worse off. You know why? Because they went and spent tons of money on an education. And they have nowhere to use it because they got passed over by somebody who had operational experience that dove into cybersecurity through a lateral entry. So that's my rant for the day. This is what I want you to do. For those of you who have a belief system that I'm not a technical expert, how in the world could I ever be in cybersecurity? Let me blow your mind real quick. Okay. I would actually argue cybersecurity needs just as many non-technical people as it does technical people. Remember that Colby test that I told you about? You think the highly extroverted entrepreneurial people are always implementing the deepest, darkest solution to save the world? No, they're not. No, they're not. I want you to imagine. So this is manage. Just give me about 10 seconds. I'm going to get this really right. Manage. We're going to do, let's just call it install or implement. We're going to call it sell. We're going to call it market. And we are going to call it, we're going to call it inform. And we're going to call it learn. This is the cybersecurity value chain. And I drew it and made it up yesterday. Okay. I'm going to put a little Ted G right there because I've never seen this. But I built it yesterday because I was like, if somebody wants to be a cyber consultant, do they have to be installing firewalls in a server room? Do they have to be installing encryption? Do they have to be? No, they don't. The cybersecurity industry needs thousands and thousands and thousands of people in hundreds and hundreds of different types of jobs. When you think about your business value, you can offer a product, you can offer a service, or you can offer a capability. And you're at a stage in your growth where you're going to start value testing. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to find the same way that we segmented out the market, the same way that we segmented out the buyers now, and we segmented out of all the cyber controls that I could go and solve. Let's pick one. This is really important because this is the necessary steps that every cyber contract has to go through. If you are going to sell a cyber service or a product, inevitably, early on in the game, somebody's going to be learning about the challenge that they have. They're going to become informed by someone else. They will be marketed to by someone else. They will be sold to by someone else. Someone else is going to come do the installation, and someone else is going to manage that solution long term. Think of a printer, okay? So I'm going to sell a printer. And I want to get into the printing game. The same kind of capability is here. There are people that probably make a living on comparing printers to each other or talking about the need to not send everything in PDF. They're going to be maybe the people that run the conferences. Maybe they're going to be the people that have podcasts. Maybe they're going to be the people that they're way up here. Their purpose in life is to help people understand the need for printers. Then you got people that, when you really want to go and really be informed about something, they're gonna create a space. So maybe there's a marketplace here. Maybe there's some sort of kind of website that you can go to that compares them all. There's going to be people who do tons of market research, market data, marketing in general, where they're talking about this particular product or service. Then somebody is going to be in the sales motions of that. And then somebody is going to have to deliver the printer. They're going to have to install it all. That's probably more of your technical component people. And then somebody's going to have to manage it. I assure you that whether big company or small, every single control that you can possibly implement inside of cybersecurity has to go through this value chain. Your responsibility to yourself in value testing for a period of 25 days is to figure out where within that value chain am I going to offer the most value. So you could become a cyber consultant because you're consulting people on the best encryption software available. You're not the expert that goes and installs it and manages it, but you are so well known and you're so tied in with all the positives and the negatives of every type of encryption that's out there that you actually create a marketplace for it. The same could be applied for every single cyber control. The other way you could look about this is that you may have a really tight skill in selling something. So being a cyber consultant, well, I'm going to be in cybersecurity as a salesperson, and I consult my prospects on what they find valuable, right? And so you have to figure out where in the value chain you're going to sit. And then what do we got? We got 30 days, 40 days. All right. In your value testing, what you're going to start doing, and this is just assuming that you're in a small company, that LinkedIn process that now has tons of content and that you've been value testing, you're going to refine the content. Now it's going to get a little ugly, but let's just imagine that I'm refining the content over and over. I'm refining my LinkedIn positioning over and over. This is a momentous moment. This is where you're going to do LinkedIn ads. You're going to target those ads specific to the companies that you want to work for, that are in the space that you want to work for, and you're going to target them with very specific ads. Now, this is where it gets a little scary. This is your third mountain that you're going to climb. Because when you run this for a period of 10 days, this is 25, 35, 40, 50. The next 20 days, you're looking for 3 to 5 deals in your pipeline. And this is when you are when the rubber meets the road. All throughout this time period, you've been doing training on that specific service or product. And by this time, you have to have a deal. You have to have a proposal. You have to have some sort of value that you've driven. And the real key to getting these 3 to 5 deals or these 3 to 5 prospects to it's not going to be that hard to get them to listen to you if you follow this methodology. But to win the contract, there's one thing you got to do, and you can do it like at an 80%. And this is what the business of cyber is all about. Connect their investment in you, whatever that is. That could be a product that you maybe resell, because you're not going to build a product in 100 days. That's a separate thing, but it could be definitely a service, and it could be some sort of capability. Connect their investment in you to their business outcomes. I'm going to go back to Joan. Joan spent the last 75 days curating content on the top 10 things that executives in transition should do to prep to become a cyber, not an expert, but at least somebody who knows how to challenge that expert. So her service that she developed was a 2-day boot camp. It cost XYZ dollars. And she basically is regurgitating every known framework, every major cyber attack within a given sector, and every one of the things that you can do better to get ahead of it. She put them in touch with nothing but all of the different supply chain, all the different product types, everything that I've laid out for you, she did. And she charged them a certain amount of money, but she didn't sell it by selling cybersecurity. She didn't position herself as a cybersecurity consultant. What she did is she positioned herself as somebody who is going to unlock that executive's potential, because that's the business outcome that they want. That individual was concerned about cybersecurity. They don't have a cybersecurity background. So they took her boot camp so that their business outcome, which is, I want to walk into my next job at least knowledgeable about what to do as it relates to cybersecurity. Joan created that. Now, that's just an HR example. You could do the same thing with physical security. You could do it with compliance. You could do it with incident response. I will warn you now, data security, a lot of the different technical solutions that are out there, you can't jump headfirst in 100 days and start adding value overnight in those different capacities. But what you can do is you can add some value in the value chain. If you're a really, really innovative person that loves to engage with others, go find a product company founder that is not a salesperson, not a marketing person, doesn't even know how or want to talk to people that often, and strap in and say, hey, buddy, I'm going to take you to the moon because I know how to do this and you know how to do the tech stuff. And maybe you're a technical founder that is ready to put the next year of your life towards building a product. I tell you, I've been there and I've done it, and you've got to do a really good job at evaluating the market so that you use your capital wisely. Look, if anything that I covered today is interesting to you, and if anything, let me see here. If anything that I've been covering is valuable, let me know, because I'd look forward to diving this into more of an expansive uh, business as cyber show or product. The bottom line is that I think there's a lot of badge protectors out there, and in the Army, when you went to a certain school, some of the people that were the instructors that had the badge, they would be really tough on you, and they'd try to protect the badge so that you didn't get it. They wanted to make the class harder. They wanted to make it exclusive and premium. And I just don't think that the cybersecurity industry can really afford that right now. Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars. My belief system is that cybersecurity shouldn't be this complex box. And that means that we have to try in an entrepreneurial fashion and in a very compassionate way. We need to bring a lot of people up the ranks. And so instead of pushing people down saying you need too much more experience and you'll never get there, I just simply argue, is that the only answer that's here? These are just some of the things that have helped me become a product CEO in a world that was tangential, but it's not what I went to school for. And it wasn't the first job that I got out of the Army, but it's where I'm thriving now. And so if I can take some of these learnings and pass them off to you, it's my pleasure to do so. My name is Ted. This is the Business of Cyber Show. And my hope today is that you got a little bit out of your next move in cybersecurity. Whether you're an expert or whether you're a novice, I hope that something today gave you just a little bit of a head scratching moment where you can be better. Thanks.